welcome to Satsang. Now you can remember again. It is like you have no memory left. You don't own the memory. It doesn't mean you can't remember. It's just you don't own the memory. You don't hold it and you don't own it. It requires then a reference point for you in order to remember. That is one of the reasons why young spiritual seeker at a certain point find it essential to meet a true teacher, because they can't produce their own reference point. Simple as that. You're disqualified to finding it, no matter what you do. Don't tell your peer group members. Otherwise, we have 800 people coming here tomorrow. I don't think we need that. When you find a reference point, of yourself. Since you are the self, as consciousness as such, it requires to attract its equal. Embodied. You only have the experience of it, and that drives you crazy. It drives you spiritual and buys yourself aeroplane tickets to a different culture in the hope to find your reference point. Then you go about visiting temples and ashrams and meeting all kinds of teachers. And maybe one day, by sheer grace, you're meeting your match. Fully embodied. That is the beginning for you to be allowed to relax a little within your own self. If then, by an extra scoop of grace, it dawns on you that this is it, you simply just sit there and wait the seasons out and watch what unfolds. The sheer unimaginability for the experiencer is unfolding for you in this life. Not by you, but for you. Everything is actually already done by the time you meet your teacher. I often talk about that. If by then, sheer luck or grace, you find it essential to surrender to that, it is pretty much your last decision on your own. You no longer have to make any decision ever again. And you can enjoy beginning to relax instead. By allowing that so to be, you slowly get to realize what being true actually is. Not what you experience about truth. It's very different actually. Consciousness slowly will most lovingly replace you within this body system, allowing you a permanent vacation from you. It is a little bit a transient state for a while, because you're not so used to that yet. But slowly, you'll be becoming acquainted to what is actually profoundly more essential compared to what you used to live as your dream, calling it my precious life. There is just no importance to it. Every village fool knows that, and every child knows that. And now even you, a spiritual seeker, gets to know that. The village fool and the child may know that, but it requires the maturity of you, the adult, to handle the comprehension of this to become a tangible reality. All this, of course, cannot take place without a conscious tree, with somebody embodying that wholesomely. And it's pretty much also automatically happening when you warmly and tenderly, surrenderedly enjoy the warmth of your tree. There is only a few little attitudes required for that. That is, of course, profound humility in nakedness, and a love for devotion. Without those two essential ingredients, a spiritual seeker can run around deluding themselves from the morning to the evening as much as they like. They will be able to experience some truth. But that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how an innocent heart actually finds all the way back home in this life. And finishing off all karmic experiences, including truth. That is not accomplished by so much spiritual knowledge. It is perhaps easily attainable by being it instead. In the shade of such a tree, accompanied by your newfound beautiful attitudes of devotion and humility, new attitude states will emerge, not by you, but by consciousness itself, allowing you through profound okayness to learn from the true master, consciousness, of how to actually be true. All this cannot happen before you surrender your arrogant knowledge of truth, pretending it is okay to continue with such nuisance, even though you already have essential awakenings. One early awakening is enough for you to know how to be more humble than you. There is no paradox to it. It is not mysterious, and it is definitely not spiritual at all. It is very simple and kind and very gentle. One only needs to have the grace to find it essential to surrender in the shade of consciousness. That's all there is. All the rest will be done for you. I was waiting for the day to come. Today, Dastian is joining satsang on the seat for the first time. No? Good boy.
Is it possible for Dastian to fully awaken to his natural self?
He already is. He just doesn't possess the intelligence like you to interpret that. All beings on this planet are in tune with their self, except of human beings. The human being is the only being on this planet that goes against the Tao of life deliberately, to whatever extent, consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, arrogantly, ignorantly, innocently, it doesn't matter. From the viewpoint of me, seeing all that from the outside, it is a waste of the intelligence that God has given the human race. It is very possible, and you are eligible, and actually also qualified, every human being is, anyone, to be your natural self. But no, everybody is okay with pretending to be something else instead. Dastian doesn't have that luxury. That's why he is free of the burden that you have. Other beings don't have that. Animal kingdom is not having that. The fauna doesn't have that. Nobody has that. Only human beings. So paradoxically, you, like Dastian, are actually already consciousness. But this is not your experience. It is very much Dastian's experience. He has zero problem with just being here right now. You have a massive problem with that, if you break it down. Always ask yourself, Krishna, what is preventing you? What is it today that could possibly show me why I can't be consciousness? You already know your consciousness. You're just yet to learn how to be it. Allow your body systems to go back to consciousness. Refrain from being the owner and the doer inside of your body so much. Make room, make space, be humble. So consciousness eventually will trust you, and slowly, slowly will occupy the spaces that you used to occupy. When you're humble enough to no longer needing to grab it in order to have a feel-good experience of it, you will be having a lot of energy set free in order to learn from consciousness flowing through your body. It will be your teacher. It will teach you how to breathe. It will teach you how to eat. It will teach you how to be devotional. You don't know anything. All you know is to be a deluded something or rather, which has nothing to do with you. The real you is so innocent and so pure and serene, most matching to the Tao of life. Pure is a good word. But how pure would you think you really are? What would an average human being's report be? An essay about purity. It would pretty much exclude them then. So they're talking about some sort of idea that they read in a book, but not their direct experience. I have hardly ever met anybody that is so humble in order to be allowed to have purity embody itself to them. It requires profound humility for something like this to start. It is not about how much purity you need and want and wish for. It is about how humble you possibly could be, not being able to produce it, to own it, to pocket it, to need it, to want it. Refrain from all this all at once and you're home. Everything belongs to consciousness, including you. You, in fact, are consciousness. But how could you possibly comprehend this line without not even remotely embodying enough percentages of humility to become even eligible for something like that? That's why I don't speak those spiritual lines so very much in satsang. I refrain from them. They don't help you. You're already home. All is one. You're already that which you're looking for. They are beautiful lines, and they are ultimately pretty true. But if you're really honest, this will be one of the last lines you comprehend. It's not your fault that it seems so impossible. You know the truth so much already, but only as an experiencer. That is the whole point, the whole dilemma of that is. But that is not even half of the coin on your journey. It's maybe 1/10 of it. Not to be judged. This 1/10 can be used by consciousness any day, most warmly and welcome and wisely. Because it is not about the quantity really. Remember? It is about the quality. The quality of you having direct experiences of truth is good. It's just not everything yet. So don't chirp so much about it. Be quiet with it. And allow this to show you the wholesome affair. All of it, slowly. You've got the whole life for that. But if you just talk about small little snippets of it, pretending this is okay to delude your peer group with such a chit-chat, that's not okay. That is not even remotely true, or let alone good. It's actually karma. You're producing new lanes of karma for your arrogant and ignorant little spiritual you after one or two little awakenings. It's really funny, man. But when you have the grace to be with authority, with consciousness embodied itself, you're pretty much off the hook. You don't have to worry about those immaturities. You just be in the now with that quality that you love and know so much is true. That is the beginning of you being it. And that doesn't require maturity. It actually just requires exactly. It only requires humility as an attitude. Just the way Om Rama's teachings go. Om Rama doesn't teach fancy lines, spirituality, religions, dogmas, rules. He has a handful of teachings that teaches 5 different passive sadhanas to focus on. They will produce a new attitude, a new curriculum, something that will support your human heart to be that which you love so much and know the truth. Otherwise you just keep running around enjoying your knowledge of truth. This is useless. The only reason you've been given knowledge is for you to learn how to be humble. Not for you to be expandedly enjoying your delusion, your delusional feel-goods. It is not true and it is not right for a spiritual young person to milk and torture the emotional body, demanding of its body to produce all day long good feelings, while feeling is not natural in the first place. It's not even true. I mean, break this down and bring this to a nowadays spiritual workshop where they share stuff like that. It has zero tradition in it, zero authority, zero authenticity, zero. The 0.1% starts when humility and grace kicks in. And for the participant of a workshop, refrain from something, not learn more of what they already delusionally having to handle. The sadness in that is that most likely all the young, beautiful people that coming to this workshop, they're beautiful, innocent people and hearts and sensitive. They're leaving their jobs in order to come to a workshop in the hope that will help them to come home. But unfortunately, workshops like this cannot bring them home, let alone workshop leaders that have no authority, that have no embodiment of the true self themselves. That is the unfortunate bit in that. That the student that comes there has kind of like more innocence than the teacher. Therefore, many young people, they can't find their match. Your match is the purity of consciousness embodied, coming to meet you, coming to meet your pure innocent self. That's your match. Nothing less and nothing more to it. When that match is happening, you have to admit this would be the absolute Maha grace on this planet. anything and everything profound happening in truth begins after that event. Nothing at all can ever happen before that. The only thing that can happen before that is delusional experiences of something. I reckon that is rather beautifully designed by the Tao of life. That's why nobody can come home. No? I mean, many people would try very sincerely and very hard. They give up their life, run to monasteries. By all means, they're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful spiritual threads through humanity everywhere. Approximately how many self-realized people do you think breathing on this planet? I have hardly ever met anybody. If you ever meet anybody, if you ever meet one, let it hit you, because you know this is the absolute grace. This is obviously very rare. I don't know if you ever ask yourself how come. I did when I was your age. I examined it. Why? How can that be? Whether or not you figure out why, it's not important. What is important, that when such an event is taking place and you happen to be a participant of it, that you have sufficient enough surrender and grace and humility that gives you sufficient enough valuation of the purity of the event. Only a small little bit in you will match that. 99.9% inside of you will be loud and bigger and screaming. That's not it. You will be not supported by you, by your mind, by your society, by your peer group. And for you to follow the little bit induces a sensitivity that you're not quite used to yet. Some of you can write a book about it by now, no, Marie? And then Om Rama's teachings become essential, because I'm teaching the curriculum, how to handle that, how to be true. I don't teach stuff that is not true. I don't delude people. There's no need for that. But it requires authority. And that doesn't come by trying to be a teacher. It only comes out of someone being naked. So that consciousness can be freely using this body system, becoming available for other bodies. And that requires then a curriculum to handle that as your human experience. Much fine energy, much light, much purity. But this is the very energy that the spiritual seeker is avoiding, because that takes them out of their comfort zone. It takes them out of their experience. And who would like to volunteer to something like that? Being true is something entirely different than wanting to have your truth and having your truthful experience of it. It's something completely different. And I think it is good so. So nobody can have the truth. It is impossible because it's not natural. The truth doesn't belong to anybody other than to consciousness. So human beings are disqualified, no matter how spiritual they look, to own it, to have it, and to ever succeed coming home with the self-righteous experience of truth. They can cultivate it as much as they like, and they can do whatever they want in their body system, and they can identify with this mind and these emotions for this life and next life and many other lives to come, and enjoying handling their consequences. But for the one that's destined to come home, it only requires more profound humility to be okay with that then. Non-mysterious, non-special, and not spiritual. Simple, Om Shanti Shanti. Om.